Well, what is going on, everybody? Welcome everybody into the Overreaction Buffalo Sports Show on the Overreaction Sports Network. I'm so excited to be here with you guys and with my two good friends, Jerry and John. My name is Joe Miller. You can find me on Twitter at Joe Miller Wired. You can find John Fina on Twitter at John Fina and Jerry Ostrowski on Twitter at Ostrowski_Big O. We're going to talk all about the draft tonight on this show. We're going to talk all things kind of Buffalo Bills as it pertains to just rumors and what we heard and pressers and reactions and stuff. And we're going to try to fit it all inside of a half an hour. Please do me a favor. Please like, please subscribe. We're trying to grow this thing. Please tell a friend. If you really enjoy the content, share it, tell a friend, retweet it. I don't know, share it on Facebook, do whatever you got to do. Take a picture of it, put it on Instagram. But this podcast finds you around a cup of coffee, at the gym with your AirPods in, on the drive to work, or watching us live right now, let us just say one more time, welcome, gentlemen. Jerry, John, how are you guys?
I'm doing great. I'm doing great.
John, you got more going on than I do.
Woo, yeah. Trying to get a kid ready for the prom.
Yeah.
Tying a bow tie, man. I still got the skills.
I can't. Yeah, you're beyond me. Big words and bow ties. That's John's. That's what we should just put in your profile. Big words and bow ties.
Maybe that sounds like a show.
Our new shows, yeah.
New show. Big words and bow ties. I smoked some ribs today, and then I took a nap. Yeah, and then I took a nap on my back porch. Like, the weather in Buffalo is now to the point where you can take a nap on your back porch. It's like, it's glorious.
That way, without becoming a Josicle.
Without becoming a Josicle.
And we, of course, are getting hit by tornadoes. So we had tornadoes, took out a whole entire town last night. Had one just south of us get hit. Sirens went off a little bit. So we're in the middle of dodging bullets down here.
Prayers to all the people in Tornado Alley, Jerry. Hopefully nobody we know is affected, horribly. And those who are, that they survive and do okay, man.
Is it the season? There's a season for tornadoes. Are we getting into the season? Is that what?
Yeah, this early spring period. And what's funny is that the tornado belt, which has always been Oklahoma, Kansas, is kind of moving north. So if you watched any of the news, Omaha, Nebraska got leveled, Lincoln got smashed, went into Iowa. So it's kind of moving a little bit north.
Gotcha. Well, it's good to have you guys alongside of us, Jerry O. Please stay safe. John, we expect that you did well with that bow tie and getting your son off to prom. And we're going to talk all about the draft. So what I'm going to do right here at the top, without any further ado, I'm going to give everybody, the Buffalo Bills, the entire draft class, as far as everybody that they drafted. I do have the list of undrafted free agents as well. We may or may not get into that. But everybody knows their very first pick was in round 2 after trading back twice. Keon Coleman, wide receiver out of Florida State. Their second pick was Cole Bishop out of Utah. He's a Ute. He's a safety. Their next pick was it was round 3, number 95, out of Kansas, or I'm sorry, out of Duke rather. Dwayne Carter, defensive tackle, and then round 4, number 128, Ray Davis, running back from Kentucky. Round 5, number 141, Cedric Van Pran Granger. I'm guessing that's how you say that.
We're going to say SVPG.
That works as well. Center from Georgia. That's what I'm going to call him. I'm going to call him the center from Georgia. I got another one in here that's coming up right now that's going to be fun. Round 5, number 160 overall, Edufwan Elufosio, linebacker out of Washington. I don't know if I did that guy any justice with his name. Did I? I think you guys have heard him before.
I believe it's Ulufosio, but I think I just put an Italian accent on that, John, if I didn't.
I got to say, I mean, I look at the name, and I'm pretty good with big words, but I've just kind of gone down to the big dude from Washington. It will forever be his
It was
name.
Funny. In one of the pressers, somebody called him Eddie. I think it was Dwayne Clark called him Eddie, which was funny.
Right.
So, round 5, number 186 overall, Javon Solomon, edge rusher out of Troy. Round 6, number 204 overall, Tylen Grable, offensive tackle out of UCF. Round 6, number 219, Daquan Hardy, cornerback out of Penn State. Round 7, their last pick, number 221 overall. I'm sorry, Travis Clayton, offensive guard out of England, and effectively he is a what do they call it?
International player.
So I don't believe he necessarily counts against the roster number, right?
He does not.
Correct.
Brandon Beane talked about it in the press conference, so he does not count against the final number.
Right. So with that list, we got, I believe, 5. It's pretty even split between offense and defense. Clearly, the very first pick was an offensive player, and then 2 defensive players followed it. They addressed pretty much every position of which they have need. I'll approach it this way. We're not going to hit all of these picks necessarily. I want to spend a little bit of time talking about Keon Coleman now that the dust is kind of settled. But what sticks out to you, or who sticks out to you immediately? Like, what's like, oh, this guy?
I think the biggest thing that stuck out to me is not necessarily individual players, because to me the draft went almost according to what you would expect. And when I say that, minus a second wide receiver, and obviously fan base is clamoring, why did we not double dip in the 4th round and get another wide receiver? They felt there was other needs, and they weren't going to reach for players, and they felt there wasn't a high enough wide receiver at that spot. I thought Brandon Beane talked about it in his press conference with the whole wideout spot and everything like that, and guys kind of dropping down to him that were more value at those picks. But I think the biggest thing to me was Beane's the most used word in the press conference, the post-draft press conference, a 4-letter word. It's usually a 3-letter word, but the way he pronounced it, it's a 4-letter word. It starts with D and ends with G, and that is dog. He used the word dog about 20 times in that press conference. And I think that what we're seeing, the theme of we were old at a lot of positions, or we were an old football team. Yeah. We got younger. If you looked, they drafted at least 4 captains. Yes. One a 3-year captain.
Yes.
And they addressed leadership that way as well. So competition, leadership, dogs, trying to get this football team younger, hungrier, created a ton of depth and a ton of competition. So while we can address the lack of 2 wideouts if you want to, because that seems to be what everybody wants to harp on in this draft, most draft nicks gave this draft a B, a solid B or B+.
Yeah.
I kind of feel the same way. Without a big-time home run hitter, because I think Coleman does have some developmental questions, it was a very solid draft by Brandon Beane.
I think, John, before you go, to that point, it's varied, right, between the mafia and like the national media. Like, where does this grade out? Like, Chris Trapasso graded the Keon Coleman pick a C-, right? And then other guys have graded it like a B+ or an A-, the Keon Coleman signing. And there's more information coming out. I think the way that I feel about this draft is the same way that I felt about the Greg Rousseau 1st-round pick. There was just very much like, that's what we did, right? And I would finish that. The period on the end of that sentence would be the most excited I have been about a Buffalo Bills draft since I started watching the draft, which was right around the J.P. Lossman, Lee Evans timeframe, was when we drafted Sammy Watkins. That was the one time that I was fist pumping. This is the guy. Yes. And we see how that turned out.
Yeah, he was the guy, all right. I don't know. That was it.
The flat Earth alien guy.
Hey, I'm okay with that. People have opinions.
John.
I'm gonna dovetail off of what Jerry said. Before I do so, hello to everybody in the chat: Daniel, Dave, Tracy, Mimi, Joseph, Roy, Ray, Chris, everybody who I didn't name. Thanks for joining us. Really appreciate you. Spread the word. We're having a great time. We hope you are too.
Yes.
I look at this draft as, there's really 2 avenues: mortgage the future again, trade up, get your guy, lose a lot of picks on the back end, and then try to cobble together the right names and people for the holes that exist. Right. And I would have been unhappy with that. You two, as good, free thinking, smart football fans, realize that one man is not going to make your season. You're not going to the Super Bowl because you drafted Roma Dunze. You're not.
Well, tell that to the Eagles when they finally got Terrell Owens and got over the hump. But yes, to your point.
Okay. Outliers notwithstanding. Now, can I finish my thought? Yes. Okay, great. What I like, in line with what Jerry was saying, captains, leaders, this and that, which I think is enormously important, especially for guys that we expect to contribute right away or be effective big role players early on. I look at the programs that they went to get the guys.
Yeah.
I'm just looking at the quality of the kids, either the quality of the school or the trajectory of the program itself. I mean, we've got Utah in there. Florida State's historically great. Washington, Troy, for those who don't know, Troy has been a beast in their division or conference over the past decade. UCF has had flashes. They got good, strong leadership. This to me it makes sense that if you can't go flash, get the guys that are going to be the backbone of your locker room. Yeah. So I'm thrilled with this draft, and that doesn't even take us into the UDFAs, which I think are just a continuation of what I just said.
But look at it this way, guys: the cap situation is what it is.
Mm-hmm.
There's still more question marks after this year with Von Miller. Can he come back and produce? But he is a year older. You're eating all the money from Diggs and him leaving. The cap issue is the cap. If you think that later this season they're going to put together a bunch of these picks from next year that they've gone ahead and gotten and acquired this draft and go out and make a trade for a big name wideout, I think you're mistaken. I think if you look at the way this thing was done, and everybody wanted to harp on wide receiver last year, and I kept saying the same thing over and over again, it's not just wideout. The team in general has a bunch of holes to fill. They have needs they have to address. The roster itself is not a good enough roster to win a Super Bowl.
Right.
And when you look at this draft, and then the fact they acquired all the picks already for next year to where you're looking at 10 picks again, maybe more when you get compensatories, that is, I think, the way that the Bills seen it as well.
Yeah.
Everybody they picked, I look at Cole Bishop, day one starter. He's versatile. He can play free. He can play strong. I think he's a strong safety, day one starter. Dwayne Carter, is he going to start? Probably not. We'll get a ton of minutes. We'll be one of the guys first off the bench. Davis, I love. Davis is only 5'8", 211 pounds, but the guy runs angry. He looks for contact. He can make it. I love him. I think he's a great pick. Then you look at my man, best name in the draft besides Kool-Aid, Cedric Van Pran-Granger. I mean, could you not imagine how that rolls off the tongue? But, you look at him as a center. Cromer went down and worked him out, feels he can play guard if need be. That's big because if they're going to carry you on the game day roster, they want versatility. Eddie Ulafoshio, I saw him play live at Washington. He's going to start out at will and learn the backup Mike position. Kind of has some similarities to Bernard. He's 6'1", 236. I think Solomon probably is the one, and Beane did say this to go to John's comment about colleges. He said, he did go to Troy. Troy historically has put out a ton of players in the draft because it's been kind of a transfer haven. But you look at him, it's 6'1", 246. How is that going to correlate to the league? He's going to have to get better in run defense as well. And then
he is slight. I mean, he's slight, but when I got to Buffalo, I was 286. When I played, I was 310.
Wow.
Right. But then to just kind of finish up with this, Tylen Grable is basically like your new, John Alt's son that got picked by the Chargers, like what, 6th overall, 5th overall. And Lane Johnson started out at quarterback, went to tight end. Now he's embraced the fact that he's a tackle. He's got to get bulkier, stronger, but he's a freak athlete. And then we traded Hardy for Hardy in the return game. Daquan Hardy from Penn State, the cornerback, will provide depth there, but he's a big-time return guy. So every pick makes sense, right? Every pick has a place. They go ahead today and they sign a free agent wide receiver that had time with the Detroit Lions. I think they feel with the free agents they picked up, like Curtis Samuel and the like, and Matt, they've
Matt
got
Collins,
enough,
right?
They got enough guys in the wide receiver room. This is a soft rebuild. This draft.
I made that point earlier.
It's a soft rebuild.
Absolutely. This is not, we're bottomed out. We're going to take 2 or 3 years. We're getting the right pieces. Look, Cephas, say what you want about him. I mean, this he's getting another chance, right?
Yeah, right.
He's a skilled guy. Mac Hollins, and then we picked up a wide receiver from Ohio State as an undrafted free agent. Yeah. I mean, the guy was freaking good enough to go to Ohio State. They literally, from my experience and the kids that I've talked to who've been recruited by Ohio State, they will say, we are not even talking to a kid unless they consider him a 5-star.
Right.
That's the clout. Those are the kids that are going to Ohio State.
Right.
So he gets through that program. So what? He doesn't get drafted.
Right.
Andre Reed wasn't a top 3 round guy, right? Was he 4 or 5 or 6? I mean,
4 or 5, yeah. But go Bucks first of all. So Quintez Cephas and his numbers as a receiver, 2020, 20 receptions, 349 yards, 2021, 15 receptions, 204, 2022 or 22 rather, 2 receptions for 15 yards. That's just the Cephas news. I'll just give that to you guys just so you have it. What sticks out to me about this draft is I was digging into the players, and everything that both of you said is great. And what I'm going to say is not negative. It's just interesting that I feel like there's a shift. And I don't know that it's a shift that everybody's paying attention to. And that shift is massive humans. The Buffalo Bills for a couple of years were drafting massive humans, both on the offensive line. I mean, Spencer Brown is every bit of 6'9", 6'8", 6'9". When you look at Groot is 6'8". Like, Groot is a huge dude. And when you consider the defensive players that they drafted, Dwayne Carter 6'2". Who else is in here? Eddie is 6'1", and then the linebacker as well is also 6 feet tall. If I'm not, or no, Eddie is 6 feet tall, and then the linebacker is 6'1". Cole Bishop is the lone standout guy that's got what I would consider like odd size, 6'2", as a strong safety, which is probably what he needs, being the guy that you talked about, Jerry, the other night when we did the post round 2, like the guy that's coming downhill, that's going to be tackling people and like manning up and hitting guys. It's just interesting to me that they kind of made a shift of like, and maybe that's how the draft board fell. It just seems like in the past they've looked for massive humans.
Well, I mean, they're addressing an area that they need to get better at on defense, and that comes with having guys that are older and things of that nature. And that is they're getting faster. Yeah. They needed some speed on defense. Right. And they got that speed. And, when you play the likes of Miami and what they're doing with Tyreek, you need to get faster. And like I said, other than I get it why they didn't take another wide receiver, 2 wideouts in the draft. But when you looked at the roster and the amount of holes, this is a 2-year soft rebuild. Next year they'll keep all 10 picks probably again, if not more, and they'll continue to do the same thing. Yeah, that round 5 pick, the center Cedric Van Pran Granger. They're like everything that I've read about him. I don't know if I said that right, Jerry. John's laughing at me. I don't know if I'm saying that right. SVPG. No, you got to say it like you got to go Cedric Van Pran Granger. That guy. You got to say it like that. There's people that believe he could start, that he could actually go in and start at the center position. So he's probably the one that's outside of Keon Coleman and Cole Bishop. He's the one that sticks out to me the most. But Jerry or John, rather, was there a specific player in this draft that stuck out to you the most? Yeah. Look, go ahead, John. I'll go a second.
For me, I just keep going back to Keon Coleman. Yeah. It's just a big body kid who's gonna fight for 50-50 balls. Yeah. The quarterbacks he worked with at Florida State were not, top 7 quarterback picks, right? The guy had to work his butt off. We need a guy who can create separation in man-to-man coverage, who's basically on top of him. Yeah. Go up, fight, twist, come down with the ball. And it's curious because people still say, we gave Xavier Worthy to Kansas City. To me, the math doesn't work in my head that way. No. And he's not our guy anyway. We already have that guy. Right. Maybe not as fast, but that type. Yeah. And I like this because I think it provides some balance in the wide receiver room where we don't have, and I have no problems with Stephon Diggs, but he's got a big personality. I think this is a more manageable room. Guys that are going to understand the common goal and work toward that common goal, spread the ball around, get creative with Joe Brady, week to week philosophy, strategize, expose defenses. And you can do that better when you don't have somebody crying for the ball and guys who will accept a role when their role needs to be played. Yeah, let me give you some information on Keon Coleman specifically, because it was a very what's happening kind of draft pick when it happened. I felt like I said on the show that I felt like that all of their chips were in the middle for Brian Thomas Jr. And when that fell through, it was more of a, well, what are we going to do? What's interesting about it, and I said it to Jerry, I felt like he was slow. And that's kind of like he ran a 4.64, something like that at the combine. It wasn't a great number. 4.61. Like there was a great deal of like concern over his burst, over his ability to separate, blah, 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 blah. So
At his pro day, or that he had, he ran, as per Ryan Talbot, he ran a 4.53, right? So he ran a 4.53, and Ryan put in there a list of like all the guys that are kind of in that category, and the names are like CeeDee Lamb, who's his cousin, and like a bunch of other like solid dudes. Kendall Mursky, who's a former Buffalo fanatic, he's from Buffalo. He is now a film study guy for actually NFL Network. He said 125 wide receivers at the combine measured 6'3" and 210 pounds since 2003. Of those 125, Keon Coleman is first of 21 with a sub 1.55 10-yard split, first of 20 with a 38-inch vertical, first of 24 with a 10.6 or 10-foot 6-inch broad jump, and one of 6 with a sub 1.55 10-yard split, 38 plus vert, and yada 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 the rest. So there's something to be said for the statistics only matter until they don't, right? So there's Bruce Nolan talks about verticality, and verticality isn't necessarily Troy Franklin straight line speed. Verticality, Gabe Davis wasn't a fast wide receiver, but he could get deep. He could get by cornerbacks. So this kid's got something when the helmet and the pads go on. The problem is we as Bills Mafia see what all the pundits say, and we see what all the draft scouts say, and we see what everybody says, and we read the numbers, and we're like, oh, this isn't the guy.
Well, that's Joe, because nobody can digest that much information unless it's their day job, right?
Right.
So, people like, that you're referring to, they're digging in.
Yeah.
You could spend an hour on everybody in the draft and half your year is gone.
Right.
I got a day job. But what I can tell you is what you told me right there, that's enormously impressive.
Yeah.
I mean, you are going to create separation within the first 3 to 5 yards on positioning a defender on your body where you want him. And then all you need is a half a step as you go with a properly placed ball that Josh Allen will deliver.
Yeah, for sure.
The way I look at it, and I would think that John would agree with me, this is once again the great divide, or the canyon between theory and reality. Okay. Theory is what we do in Indianapolis every year in April.
Yeah.
Okay. We have guys that once they finish their senior seasons, they travel to high level training places and they do all this training, and then they go do the combine. Okay. And they get the numbers they get.
Right.
And everybody talks about it like that is why you should draft the kid, because of his combine.
Right.
The combine and the season tape should validate each other. You never draft anybody off the combine. You never really draft anybody off of the game film alone. They work together. So when Coleman goes and runs a 4.61, the first thing that Beane and his staff does is pop the tape in. And they say, okay, is he playing at a 4.61?
Right.
Obviously he's not. And then you look at the way he competes to catch the football and everything else. So the importance here, if you want to really get into this and start flying your flag and complaining about a draft and who goes where, well, then spend the time with the college tape and study each player, and then come back and tell me what you see and don't see.
Yeah.
Everybody can pop on NFL Network and watch the combine, and it's fun, and everything's great.
Mm-hmm.
But I think every GM in the National Football League will tell you the game tape is much more important than the combine. All the combine does, they validate each other, but the game film is more important.
Sorry, John, what's funny about that, to wrap that point up, is just they go back to the film with Gabe Davis when Brandon Beane is in their suite and Gabe Davis is running his 40, and they're like literally hoping he doesn't run fast. They're like, hopefully he doesn't run fast. Like, it's literally what they said. Like, they already knew that they liked him enough that they didn't want him to run like a 4.49.
Right. Right.
Well, Jerry's exactly right. You got to marry the measurables to the film, the performance. And I think what pains Bills Mafia right now, the fan base, is, we've got a great football team and we've had some incredible seasons over the past 4 or 5 years, right?
Mm-hmm.
We're living large compared to 17 years of drought. And that's not to say that I don't want to go to the Super Bowl and win the damn thing. But I think everybody keeps carrying this acid in their mouth about Kansas City being the top. So everything, it just kind of drives the nail into your foot a little bit deeper, where you're just like, we got to be Kansas City. And if it were spread around a little bit, if it were the Chargers, Kansas City, and nobody in the East, of course, but Denver or whomever, I don't think that there'd be this level of anger, but everybody's got it in their mind that we're just competing with the red team, right?
Yeah.
And I just don't see it that way.
But the other thing about Kansas City is this, that nobody wants to admit. Okay? They got the
bunch of cheaters.
Yeah, besides that. They got the best quarterback in the NFL. They got the best tight end, if not one of the best tight ends in the NFL.
Of all time, possibly.
They got one of the best, if not the best, defensive tackles in the NFL. They got a top 2, top 3 center in the NFL. And so let's talk about that. It's not just they got fast guys.
Well, we talked about it. We talked about it a couple weeks ago. I said we used to have a team full of superstars, and now we've got Josh Allen. Like Josh Allen is the guy we've got. Jerry, I want to get to you. I know that we're just running out of time. The player that stuck out to you. So if you got a line to finish up, and then give us the player that stuck out to you.
The player that stuck out to me is Cedric Van Pran Granger.
That's BPG.
No, my favorite player, I think everybody knows and probably tired of me talking about him, is Cole Bishop, the safety from Utah. Anytime you get a guy at safety that's 6'2", 206 and rolls downhill, I am all for it. I think it is the one position on the defense that is probably overlooked more than any and can be the most intimidating position in all of football on the defensive side. I love him. Like I said, I think he's a day one starter, captain, leader, a guy that can get after it. The other guy that kind of stuck out to me real quick, and I don't want to take up too much time, but I really like Ray Davis, man, from Kentucky. I think he brings a different attitude to that running back room that we have not had. If you watch him in blitz pickup or pass pro pickup, he gets after dudes like Thurman, and Thurman's probably the best I've ever seen at pass pro ever. And he gets after dudes like he does. He runs angry, and I think he's going to change that room. Not only bring competition, but he's also going to change the attitude of that room for the better. So those are the two guys that I really, really like.
Yeah, that running back room is just quietly super impressive. You know, with the variety of skill sets.
It got more impressive today or yesterday. Today, basically, when you figure that they've got 5'8" Davis, and they also signed 5'8" Frank Gore Jr. So Frank Gore Jr. is now on this roster. And I have to wonder if he is the next Duke Williams, if he is the next Lionel Gates, if he's the next like camp guy that like the Bills Mafia is just like losing their minds over. Like, how does that guy like this guy?
Well, I mean, it's the thing that's been going on in the league now. Last year you had the kid from Kansas State that was drafted by the Cowboys. His dad was the personnel guy. Right. Jeremiah Trotter Jr. got picked from Clemson to the Eagles this year. Howie Roseman used to carry him around when he was a little kid.
Right.
So, there are these feel-good situations in the league, but it's going to be tough for Junior in that room right now. It's pretty special.
Yeah. So this is where I want to finish this show. And we've been very positive, and I don't want people to think, because the word homer gets thrown around and stuff like that. I feel like we're being objective in our conversations, right? I feel like we're doing a good job of like being objective with the guys that they took. Could it have been better? Sure. Could they have gotten Neighbors? Who knows if they risked everything and gave everything up and they went and got that guy.
Well,
go ahead.
We can be objective. That doesn't mean people aren't going to pick fights with Jerry O on Twitter.
Well,
I mean, and that's the point.
Well, hang on. Let me go somewhere. So the Bills talent squad, right? Is a group that Bills Mafia is enamored with, right? So Dalton Kincaid, Dawson Knox, Khalil Shakir. Like, we've got a bunch of guys, James Cook, like Ty Johnson. I love Ty Johnson. We as a group, we as a fan base love the guys that we have in Buffalo inside of our building. However, there's nobody on this roster from a talent standpoint yet that is elite. Dalton Kincaid is going to make a case for that. But the reality is outside of Dalton Kincaid, most people in the NFL that are fans don't know who Khalil Shakir is. They don't know who this guy is. And there's a reality to this soft rebuild that you're talking about. How do you win in a soft rebuild, especially when you've got holes more holes on your defense than on your offense, right? And I think we can all agree with that. We're missing a wide receiver on offense. We're missing quite a few guys on defense, especially at depth. Well, what you do is you take the guys you have, you go get more offensive weapons, and you plan to score 40 or 50 points every week, and you make the other team chase you. Very much what you guys did in the heyday. You guys played a style of football that was basically, we're going to score in 90 seconds, and you can try to keep up. Some teams could, most teams couldn't. And what the Bills did in this draft and what they've done throughout this free agency is basically tried to build a complete team in a soft rebuild moment, which they're not going to talk about. They're not going to say it. So there's an aspect of reality when it comes to trying to put like the rubber to the road that I don't know what to make of this team this year. I don't know that we're going to get the Kansas City Chiefs from 2022 that had 7 rookies start and actually play important snaps. Like, I don't know that we can expect that from this rookie class. And if that doesn't happen, I don't know that we're talking about being at the end of the season where we want to be. I feel like this was the year that you basically tool up, score 40 or 50 points a game, and make them catch you.
I think in the Bills situation, you shore up your defense, which I think they did, and you play good defense, and then you go with what Daniel has to say about soft rebuild.
This is a league where defense doesn't win championships anymore.
Can I finish my point, please?
Yes, you can.
Wow.
Man, it must be because he's got all that pent-up rage about not picking a second wide receiver in his body. That
you know what it is? He's got that champion sweatshirt from 1981 that's scratchy like
come at me, bro. You guys can both come at me. I don't even care.
With the stretch panel on the side.
What I said is not wrong. What I said is not wrong.
You win a soft rebuild by having Josh Allen, who's the second best quarterback in the league at this point. With Josh Allen, and I don't know that's exactly how you spell Josh Allen, but anyway,
in some countries,
you shore your roster up, you get some playmakers, which they have, and you've got Josh, and that's how you win. This league, no matter who you draft, no matter what you do, it comes down to quarterback play. If you watch the offseason, if you watch the draft, and you watch these people lose their damn minds trying to find a franchise quarterback, you understand real quick that's what it's all about. So the other thing is this: you better have depth. You better have depth like the Bills have done in this draft, because with 17 games being played and the possibility of 18, you better have a bunch of players that can come off the bench and play, because attrition is going to be even bigger than it already is.
Yes.
I think going a little bit different take, but agreeing with Jerry at the same time, I think we became a little bit predictable. I think when they made the change to Joe Brady, there was a different philosophy. There's so many different types of plays you can run. There's so many different ways to study the defense that you're going to play against. And I thought we ended up a little bit too predictable. And when Joe Brady took over, I think we saw a little bit more variety. Now, the New England Patriots won a lot of games and some Super Bowls with some very unknown players. They had Tom Brady, and then they had maybe one outstanding receiver. But a lot of these guys that played for the Patriots were lunch pail guys. And I think that you might say we're missing the marquee wide receiver, but I don't think that stops us. And I don't think that you should believe that somebody isn't going to emerge. And I think we're looking at a much more varied offensive philosophy, and someone is going to emerge. Dalton Kincaid, Shakir, plus who? And we have enough guys, I think, that can do that.
You know, New England won a lot of football games with the best quarterback in the league, and the catchphrase that Bills fans despise, but it's the truth, they played complementary football. They complemented each other. They didn't turn the ball over.
Joe's head just spun off. Someone's going to have to screw his head back.
I said, I'm disappointed in Joe. I was expecting Joe to come barrels smoking about this non-second wide receiver pick in the draft, and he just went soft on it.
Okay, all right. And I'm going to close it out with this comment. There were so many wide receivers in this draft. Tons of offensive linemen were taken, and quarterbacks were taken right early on. That pushes a significant amount of talent further down into the draft, which also pushes a significant amount of talent into the free agent market. All right. Let's see that we got the right guys from the right schools with the right leadership traits and have the right battles in training camp to have those guys emerge.
Yeah, very much.
And I also think that nobody's giving this guy a chance at wideout either.
Keon
and
Coleman.
that is Cedric Van Pran Granger. Before I got that out of my system, I think.
I hope
you have not. We're going to get a whole season.
Because I'm over it. I am over it.
Before we get out of here, Jerry, pull up your shirt so everybody can see it, just because people in the chat are asking about it. So, all right, Bills fans, listen up. Are you looking for a fresh way to show out for the teams that we love? Look no further than Buff on WEC, your ultimate destination for Buffalo themed gear. Whether you're bleed blue and red zebra stripes for the Bills, retro royal for the Sabres, or rep any of Buffalo's other legendary sports franchises, they've got the perfect tees for you. Dive into action at buffonweck.com and make sure you give them a follow on Instagram, Facebook, all at Buff on WEC. Buff on WEC, tasty merch with a Buffalo bias. If you're looking for Overreaction merch, which people were just talking about it in the chat, in the comment section, you can get that Overreaction shirt that Jerry's wearing, the hoodie that I was wearing the other day. There's a crew neck, and then also Wildest Dreams Land t-shirts with Josh Allen on them. So buffonweck.com is where you want to go. Jerry.
And as we progress, we'll have different styles of merch. Yes. And then also John and I have talked about having some stuff on there, some John Fina and Jerry's autograph stuff. So we've had some people ask about that.
Yeah.
And I know the underground market's not hot and heavy on the on the Jerry-O merchandise, but we will have a place where you can get a couple of things.
You might,
Jerry. I still have a pair of your boxers from the 90s.
Oh, well.
Oh, hey,
show over. And that's all we've got for you tonight.
You should have seen Jerry-O walking around the locker room going, "Who's got my chonies?"
With that, ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much for tuning in to the Overreaction Buffalo Sports Show on the Overreaction Sports Network. My name is Joe Miller. That's Jerry Ostrowski, and below us is John Fina. Why don't you guys tell them where they can find you real quick?
You can find me on Twitter or X at Ostrowski_Big O. I'm on Instagram too, but just put my name in because I can't remember my handle.
Yeah, right. And on Twitter or X, I'm at John Fina. On Instagram, I think I'm just John Fina. But hey, guys, thanks for showing up to the chat. We love all of you.
Yeah.
Pass the word if you enjoyed the show. If you hated it and you want people to come hate us, tell them to subscribe also and yell at us in the chat. We enjoy it.
Yes.
At Instagram, I'm at Oski Big. So OSKI Big.
Way to make it easy, Jerry.
Please subscribe. We've got 3 shows a week for you right now. And coming soon, when the season starts, we'll actually be going 5 days a week. This Tuesday night, we've got Jay Skursky from the Buffalo News on the Beat. We've got a great lineup of Bills beat reporters coming up through the summer. So please don't miss an episode. You got to subscribe. If you don't subscribe, you're going to miss it. But for me, for Jerry, for John, go Bills.
Go Bills, baby.
Go Bills.